Morning, good afternoon, and good evening, PSW 1043. I hope you're doing all right. Welcome to week 7 video on chapter 15, Blood. My name is Ian Coates, and I hope that you're enjoying your day. Let me know if you guys have any issues. Let's go. Today we're going to be talking about the functions and the composition of blood itself. Blood, it looks like a liquid, but it's actually composed of actually a couple of different things there, but we're going to focus on 3 of them right here. Erythrocytes, leukocytes, thrombocytes. There's a number of different functions that the blood does. I'm sure that you guys have a fairly good awareness of what blood does and is. We're going to go into a little bit more detail, I hope, and enlighten you. We're also going to talk about where blood cells are made, explain the composition, characteristics, and function of RBCs and WBCs, as well as platelets there, including the breakdown of RBCs and the formation of bilirubin. What blood does. Blood transports, in conjunction there with the cardiovascular system. It carries the oxygen, it carries nutrients to the cells, okay, and carries waste away from the cells, carbon dioxide, all these kinds of things for excretion. Regulation, temperature control, okay, through what we call vasodilation, okay, which brings the blood closer to the surface of the skin. We're able to release heat. In colder temperatures there you get vasoconstriction, which takes the blood and moves it closer to the core so that we're able to maintain body heat. Acid-base regulation, electrolyte balance, we'll get into it. Protection, absolutely against infection. Okay, the skin, mucus, nose hairs, these are what we call primary defense. Please refer to the other week 7 video that's posted, okay, talking about the immune system. But once a bug has gotten into our system, okay, what happens then? And as well, bleeding, the whole idea. When we get a little paper cut, why don't we just bleed out completely, right? We don't. All right, so what is blood? And you can have a look here. Lots of interesting things going on. All right, you can see the RBCs, red blood cells here. They're bioconcave, and there's no DNA in these guys here. Then you have white blood cells, and there are a plentiful number of these. All right, these are involved in our immunological protection against bugs. And then you have platelets, these little guys in here. So cells, cell fragments, dissolved nutrients, oxygen, waste, hormones, that is what blood is composed of. It is a liquid which is 3 to 4 times more viscous, thicker than water. And these cells include RBCs that transport gases, white blood cells that fight disease, and cellular fragments, platelets there, thrombocytes that help control blood loss. All right? Characteristics of blood. Basically, as we said there, it's about 3 to 4 or 5 times thicker than water. The pH, notice the pH, neutral pH, deionized water, like that red cap Culligan water, okay? With no ions, nothing in it, 100% pure water, no salts, everything, all the water that comes out of your tap has ions and calcium and sodium in it, all right? Some water systems there, they even put fluoride in for your teeth. So that, but pure water has a pH of 7. And you'll see there that our blood is slightly basic. And you'll see there 7.35 to 7.45. That is a pretty tight window. If our blood has a pH greater than 7.45, you might want to go to the hospital. If our blood has a pH there's less than 7.35, you might want to go to the hospital. So how does the blood maintain a pH so specific? We have blood buffers. And a buffer is a chemical there that resists pH change. Plasma. You know that, excuse me, you know that kind of yellow ooze that comes out of a cut, that's what we're talking about, plasma. And I'll show you, you can see the, precursor right here when what we call centrifuge blood. Put it into a centrifuge that spins it, and you'll see there that the majority of blood is actually plasma. And this is composed of water, electrolytes, these are the dissolved calcium, sodium, potassium, these kinds of things. Those are your ions, waste. Plasma proteins, there's albumin, clotting factors, gamma globulins. The serum is plasma minus clotting factors. All right, just for your notice. The albumin there is the main protein involved in maintaining blood osmolarity. Okay, it's about 55% of the blood proteins. It's a big chunk. These globulins, they have a variety of functions, including enzymes, immune function, what we call immunoglobulins, okay, aka antibodies. Aha! There are carrier proteins and regulatory proteins there. Fibrinogen, okay, this is what this is involved in clotting, and when you do get a cut, okay, not severe, a non-severe cut, right, and what happens there is these kind of like spider web proteins there. They go across the cut from the inside, and that's how the blood eventually stops leaking out of a cut. Okay, there's lipoproteins there. You've heard of LDLs and HDLs. Hormones, but 1% of plasma proteins there. And we'll get into hormones there. I think it's week 12 or 13. Probably week 12. Okay. So the blood has two parts, and you can see there that about 55% of your blood is plasma. And this has been centrifuged. And centrifuge is they take a sample of blood, or anything in this case, any type of liquid, and they spin it at like 2,000, 5,000 RPMs, rotations per minute. And what it does is the heavier constituents there of the liquid itself, they get pushed down to the bottom. So you can see there, the plasma is about 55%. There's your RBCs, which constitute about 45%. And you'll notice, and I'll zoom in, is what we call there the Buffy coat. Those are your WBCs, white blood cells. Okay? And that's what we've got there. Your formed elements, 45% total. There's your erythrocytes, RBCs, leukocytes, WBCs, and your thrombocytes, what we call platelets. These are involved in blood clotting. Origin of blood cells, the process of blood cell production. This is a great word. Love it. You may want to know it. Hemopoiesis. Okay, hemo is blood, poiesis is creation. So where are the blood cells made? Okay, the red bone marrow. Okay, inside of the bone. Okay, that's where in younger individuals the bone marrow is red, means it's still producing blood. In older individuals like myself, the amount of blood tissue that is made is less. Then the inside of bone turns yellow. You get a yellow bone marrow. Lymphoid hemopoiesis there. Here we're talking about lymphoid tissue. Lymph. Hemopoiesis in the red bone marrow. And you can see the... actually, we'll do this there, and then we'll go into a bit of a zoom here. Stem cell. Okay, these are cells there that have the ability to migrate or create or be created or turned into any number of cells. It's quite revolutionary, the what's going on there with the utilization of stem cells. You look at some stem cells there can be created to make new nerve tissue, which you can see the advantage of there if you're talking spinal cord injury. Nerve cell is very, very difficult to regrow, okay, and heal. So there's three paths. There's erythropoiesis, leukopoiesis, and thrombopoiesis. Okay, what happens if the stem cell commits to one? It becomes a red blood cell. What happens if the stem cell commits to column 2, 3, or 4? Here's your column 2, 3, or 4. Okay, it becomes a white blood cell. Okay, a platelet is not a true blood cell. It's just not. Okay, this is an RBC. These are my WBCs here. Has a function, has a function. This also has a function, but you can see there that it's really not. It's a fragment. Okay, it's a fragment of what we call a megakaryocyte. And if a stem cell commits to column 5, it becomes a megakaryocyte, and the platelets, they branch off. They just come right off, and that's what's involved in blood clotting. Okay, megakaryocyte produces platelets. Bone marrow depression occurs if bone marrow cannot produce enough blood cells. Okay, myelosuppression is just another name for it there. Can be problematic. Generally occurs in older individuals. You can have aplastic anemia, RBC deficiency, leukopenia, WBC deficiency. You know, we're not making enough. Here we have platelet deficiency. Okay, and pancytopenia, all of them all together. You can see how problematic that can be. On the other side of the coin there, overactivity leads to excess RBC production, okay, called polycythemia, okay, can burden the heart, overwhelm the clotting system. And generally there, if somebody exhibits this characteristic there, they will have a beet red face or palms, overproduction. Just components there of the blood itself. I don't want to go too crazy into this there, but you guys can have a look for sure. All right. You remember your 55% and your 45%, right? 55%, there's your plasma proteins, okay? And you'll see there's your electrolytes there, your dissolved solids, water, proteins. There's your albumin, globulins, fibrinogen, as we just spoke about. Waste, nutrients, vitamins, hormones, gases. There you go. Formed elements there. There's your white blood cells, RBCs, platelets. Okay. And these are the white blood cells. There's lymphocytes, okay, monocytes, basophils, these eosinophils, and neutrophils. Okay, these guys here are the first ones on the scene if there's any trouble. So red blood cells there, shape and content, large disc-shaped, bioconcave as we say. You can see there it kind of dips in the middle, okay? Because the RBCs can bend, it can squeeze its way through tiny blood vessels. And that's the whole point. When you get into these capillaries, you know, like when we get into, you know, the circulatory system, all right, you'll see there that when the blood comes out of the heart and up through the aorta, it's massive, massive, massive pressure. And then, but by the time those RBCs get down to your cells and your big toe, now they're into what we call the capillaries. And they're just, it's microscopic, and there's basically no pressure. And these things here can bend and shape shift and just to get through and get to where they need to go. Okay? This flexibility allows the RBCs to deliver oxygen to every single cell in the body. Contains hemoglobin, iron. Heme is iron. Okay? Globin comes from the RBC. Heme carries iron. The RBCs are the most numerous of blood cells and are primarily concerned with the transport of oxygen and CO2. Function of the hemoglobin is that it's a large protein molecule that carries oxygen through the body, generally speaking. Each globin chain carries a heme. Okay, the oxygen binds loosely to the iron. So you need that iron supply. And generally speaking, women tend to have less iron. There's you can have an iron deficiency there because of the menses there, the monthly menses, right? The loss of blood. You need to make sure that your iron content is up to snuff. Okay? White blood changes color. You know, we're used to there that when you get a cut, okay, the red blood, okay, it's kind of ruby red. We call this oxyhemoglobin, and that is because that blood is carrying the oxygen. So a lack of O2 makes blood bluish red. You know, like the whole idea there, when you get really cold, your lips turn blue. Cyanosis, okay, can make your hands turn blue. It's hypo, means low, okay, and low oxygen. Substances essential there for hemoglobin production. Absolutely, you need that healthy bone marrow. You ain't making any blood if you don't have healthy bone marrow. You need a source of iron, vitamin B12, intrinsic factor, folic acid. You've heard of that one there when female's pregnant. Need a good dose of that. Please consult your physician before doing anything I ask. Healthy kidneys, okay, and when we get into the kidneys there, you're going to see that they're actually the big boss. They're the ones there that are monitoring the blood. And if we need more blood, the kidneys are going to notice, and then they make a phone call over to the bones. And they tell the bones there to start making more blood. There you go. Absence of bleeding and hemolysis. We'll get into that there a little bit later. Okay. And don't forget, there's good stuff in here as well. So when you're going through these PowerPoints there, I've left this information here. There's little bits and bobs there that'll just make your life that much richer and fuller. Anatomy and physiology speaking. Regulation of RBC production. Okay, low oxygen level in the blood. And wouldn't you know it, the kidneys are watching, right? They secrete a hormone there called erythropoietin. Okay. Erythropoietin stimulates the bone marrow to produce more RBCs, and thus the RBCs increasing the amount of oxygen able to carry. Okay, low oxygen levels, kidneys detect that, phone call there to the bones, kick up more blood, and we're good to go. Okay. Removal and breakdown of red blood cells. The normal RBC production there is about 120 days, about 3 to 4 months, and then all this old blood gets the chomp, phagocytosis. Okay, and we just don't dispose of it. We break it down and utilize and reuse everything there that we can. So here's a heme molecule there. You see this is hemoglobin, and you'll see there's 4 units there for iron. Okay, atoms in there. We break this down, so there's your hemoglobin. We break it down into the heme, which then gets broken down into bilirubin and then bile, yellow fluid there. Okay, if we're not able to remove that there, then you end up getting a little bit of yellow in the eyes called jaundice. Iron there is stored or recycled. We tend not to throw that out if at all possible. The globin there broken down into individual amino acids, which is then rebuilt, reused, and more blood is made with that. Okay. There's your jaundice. Okay, hemolytic jaundice, rapid breakdown of RBCs, hyperbilirubinemia. Yeah, say that 5 times. Yellow stained tissue, obstructive jaundice, normal rate of RBC breakdown, but diminished excretion of bilirubin and bile. Okay, and yellow stained tissue. Okay, you get yellowing of the eyes and of the tissue as well. Good. So I'm going to move that up. There we go. Anemia, insufficient RBCs. Okay, this is RBC production falters if conditions are disordered or necessary substances are missing. You can have sickle cell anemia. Okay, this is an issue there with the blood. Tend to be found in tropical regions. Okay, you'll notice that this is your typical RBC. An individual there that has sickle cell anemia, the RBCs are a crescent moon shape. And just going back in here, you'll see how these RBCs there, they can bend and shapeshift, you know, a little bit there to get through where they need to go. They're round, they can get through. An individual there with sickle cell anemia, their RBCs are crescent shaped. and they can get caught on the inside of the capillary. It's a little bit more difficult with these individuals there as far as oxygen carrying. They'll tend to get out of breath a lot easier than somebody without it. But interestingly enough, it's a natural evolutionary fight against malaria. People with sickle cell do not get malaria. Interesting. Hemolytic anemia, hemorrhagic anemia. There's lots of good stuff here. Okay. White blood cells, the WBCs, they protect the body against infection and inflammation. There are phagocytes. These are what we say Pac-Man down in here. Chomp, chomp, chomp. They degrade things, right? Like old RBCs, any type of pathogen, bacteria that gets in, it will hopefully get the chomp, chomp, chomp. And you'll see there, here's a blood vessel, which we haven't gone into yet. We will there during week 8 and 9. But you'll see there that these white blood cells, they can squeeze in between. And, they, if there's an infection over here, but this guy is moving in this blood vessel, it can squeeze through and get to where it needs to go. Interesting, eh? Neutrophils, monocytes there. These ones here do the chomp, chomp. They can leave the blood vessels. Okay, and very interesting. Classification of WBCs. Okay, they're classified according to granules in their cytoplasm. So there are granulocytes. These guys here contain granules. Neutrophils, basophils, eosinophils. And then there are those that do not contain granules here. These are the lymphocytes and the monocytes. Okay. Neutrophils there, they're the most common of all the granulocytes, 55 to 70% of the total WBC production. Most important role, chomp, chomp. Cells quickly move to the site of infection, where their phagocyte, where they chomp, chomp there, the pathogens, and remove old tissue and debris. Other granulocytes there, as we said, basophils, eosinophils, agranulocytes. And you can see them all right here. I can just cut and paste this onto here. Doesn't want to. Doesn't want to. No, my daughter changed my mouse there for her computer, and this mouse stinks. So, basophils there are present in small number and play a role in the inflammatory process. You got to think. If you get a cut or there's an infection and, on your skin there, the redness, the soreness, it's swollen, that's inflammation. Well, that's your body's response to something going on in that particular area. And you have to think that inflammation, that just means that there's more cells there than there should be. And they're there because there's an issue. And when the issue goes away, it's not inflamed anymore, right? Eosinophils there, they secrete chemicals, okay, that destroy certain parasites, engage in phagocytosis, become elevated in persons there with allergies. Although the neutrophils are more abundant, okay, the monocytes, 3% to 8% of WBCs are more efficient phagocytes, okay? You don't have to remember any of these things. Everything is online, but it's just a good little mnemonic here to remember them if and when you do have to later on in your educational career. Okay? Naughty little monkeys eat bananas, said Grandpa Ben. Have some fun with that. Use it. Don't use it. Platelets there, these are the tiny structures. Remember those fragments of the megakaryocyte? The megakaryocyte, the pieces of it just fall off, and these are the platelets. Produced in the red bone marrow, okay, thrombopoiesis, okay, lifespan considerably shorter than the RBCs, only about a week or so, and it's all about blood loss, okay? Very good. Blood count, you'll hear this at numerous times there throughout your careers. CBC, complete blood count, provides information about blood composition, shows percentage of the different types of WBCs. Differential count shows percentage of each RBC, a little bit more in depth there, okay? Hemostasis, blood types, and RH factor. Okay, this is the next part. Okay, last part here of the PowerPoint for Chapter 15. We're going to look at the steps involved in hemostasis. What is hemostasis? Describe the 4 types of blood. A, B, O. You know those ones there. And we're going to look at RH factor, which every mother or expectant mother will be well aware of. Okay. So hemostasis, what is it? Okay, prevention there of blood loss here. And you'll see what happens there when you actually get a cut. All right, the whole idea of what goes on there, you're cutting a blood vessel. It's all right, so the blood starts to leak into the superstitial fluid, into the interstitial tissue, or even to the outside, right? And you'll see there that the vessel, the blood vessel, will start to spasm. Okay, and it's actually it slows down the RBC loss. Okay, and it gives the body a little bit of extra time to get the platelets there, fibrinogen there to stop this from happening, right? And then you have what's called platelet plug formation. Okay, and then blood coagulation. Coagulation means just this blood comes together and kind of forms a muck. Okay, sticky, and that's your plug, right? The smooth muscle in a blood vessel wall responds to injury by contracting. This is called vascular spasm. When torn, the inner lining of a blood vessel activates the platelets. Both the injured vascular lining and platelets become sticky, forming a platelet plug. Why would a large crush injury to a finger often cause less bleeding than a paper cut? The crush injury causes more vascular spasm. Okay, aspirin. Okay, you'll hear about this drug as well. It's called Coumadin. Okay, a lot of elderly individuals take that there because blood is 3 to 5 times thicker than water, right? And if people don't drink enough water, that can increase. So you don't want syrupy blood, because how is the heart going to pump that through all the blood vessels? So a lot of elderly individuals will take blood thinners. Okay, and aspirin is a natural blood thinner. They advertise it there. If you feel a heart attack coming on, take 2 aspirin, and that will thin your blood and provide you, hopefully, there with a couple of extra minutes until you can get to a hospital and get taken care of. Okay, so these are blood thinners there. So here's your coagulation. There's your fibrinogen threads. Okay, and just remember there the cut. The blood is leaking. There's your platelet plug. And then we get blood coagulation. All right. And then eventually a scab will form. Okay. Just another shot, kind of the same thing. You can see here there's a break in the vessel wall. Okay. And blood starts leaking through. Then you have the platelets. And then you have the fibrinogen there, and helps to control the blood loss. Just love this shot here, electron micrograph there of the actual fibrinogen there, kind of like spider webs, and just keeps the blood inside. Okay, formation of a blood clot. Okay, injury produces what we call PTAs that activate prothrombin there to form thrombin, and this activates the fibrinogen there to form these fibrin fibers. Okay. Anticoagulant, natural mechanism, prevents clot formation. Okay, heparin, aspirin, Coumadin, these are those anticoagulants. And they can be problematic. Yes, they keep the blood flowing, which is what you want in an elderly individual. But what can happen there? A paper cut. This thing can now bleed for hours. That's the problem. Or a bruise, like elderly people who are on anticoagulants there, they will bruise very, very easily. And a bruise is just bleeding under the skin, right? Fibrinologist, clot breakdown. Okay, so after the clot has done its job, it needs to be dissolved. Okay, Tissue plasminogen activator. There's your TPA is formed there by the injured tissue. Plasmin dissolves the clot. When administered as a drug, TPA is also called a clot buster. It can prevent the tissue damage that a clot may cause in a heart attack or stroke. Because that is what's going on, right? Is that the blood can't get through to where it needs to go. So any of the cells on the other half of the clot, okay, they starve. And that's what happens there in a heart attack or a stroke, which you definitely want to prevent. If the cause was a hemorrhage, the administration of TPA will increase the bleeding as well. So drugs that affect clotting, there's your anticoagulants, heparin, okay, Coumadin, all right, and there's your Coumadin right there, prevents formation, okay, of the platelet plug formation. Clot buster drugs there's your TPA. Blood types. Now, before we get into blood types, we're going to get into a little bit of terminology here. An antigen is any molecule that can trigger an immune response. Now, generally here we're talking a pathogen, bacteria, virus, whatever, but it could also be someone there who's allergic. Dust, pollen, which are not deadly to us in any form, but for some reason their bodies see it as a threat. So dust, pollen, virus, bacteria, mold, fungi, it's what we call an antigen. Okay? Shouldn't be there in the body. Antibodies, though, these are naturally produced in our body and are part of the immune system. And they each have one specific target antigen. So you think about all the different antigens out there, we have all of these antibodies that are watching, waiting for one of these antigens to enter, and when it does, the alarm bells are sent off, and these antibodies go and they take it down. If it comes into contact with an antigen, it will trigger an immune response and attack. Okay, and you think of dust and pollen, the whole idea there that when dust or pollen enters the body of an individual who is, allergic to it, the nose gets runny, the eyes get watery, the nose gets stuffed up, swelling, all these kinds of things. That's part of the immune response. The body has been triggered and it's attacking. Now, human blood groups here, RBC membrane. Now, you remember there, you go back there a couple weeks there and you look at the membrane, okay, of a eukaryotic cell. It was phospholipid bilayer, right, where it's water inside the cell, water outside the cell, and the only thing that separates water from water is an oil or a fat. Well, our membranes there are these phospholipid bilayers, oil, fat. But it's not just, plastic wrap or cellophane that covers the cell. It's not smooth. There are these proteins, glycoproteins, sugar proteins, and they stick out of these membranes. And we all have our own specific glycoproteins, okay? Some of us have the same, a lot of them, they're the same. Some of them are different, okay? But that's how we tell one of our cells from a foreign invader. A foreign invader will not have the same glycoproteins that our cells do. So that's how we tell if a foreign cell has invaded our body. So these antigens, remember the bad things that have entered in, they'll have different glycoproteins, and once that's detected, it's perceived as foreign if transfused blood is mismatched. Like, the whole idea, you just think back into the dark ages when they were experimenting on human beings, and hey, I'm just going to take your blood and put it into this guy. And then all of a sudden, this guy here just dies an extremely horrible death, right? Because you've now put in someone else's blood that has different proteins, glycoproteins in it, and the person there that received the blood is their immune system there just went crazy. Okay, unique there to each individual. If you put the wrong type of blood into somebody, what will happen is what we call agglutination. Okay, and agglutination is that new blood will turn into jam. Yeah, it's quite it's not even really nice to think about. Okay, presence or absence of each antigen is used to classify blood cells into different groups. Okay, and you'll see here, just move that out of the way. You have 4 different types, okay, of RBCs, and you have type A, type B, type AB, and type O. So you'll see here, have a look here at type A blood. Okay, it has A antigens sticking out of it. Okay, now these are our antigens. You know, this is a glycoprotein here sticking out, and this is ours. Okay, if you're a type A blood. But what'll be floating around in the plasma? Remember the 55%? These are the antibodies that are floating around. I call them the sniffer dogs. They're looking. They're always watching. They're watching. And they're looking for B antigen. And this person doesn't have it, so these blood cells are okay. These antibodies are not freaking out. Everything is good. Look at type B blood. They have type B antigens, glycoprotein sticking out of their RBCs, and their antibodies are A. They're looking for A, what we call anti-A antibodies. So you see, that's the problem. If you put this guy's blood into this person right here, okay, you see those B antigens that are sticking out, you put this blood into this individual here, all of a sudden these guys here, the alarm bells will go off, and there's your agglutination, there's your jam. These guys here will just attack and bring it down. And now you've got this jam substance in your blood vessels. Not nice at all. You have type AB blood. And you'll notice here I have A and B, but no antibodies floating around. Aha. And then you have type O blood, which you know is a good one there to have as far as donations go. But you'll see that this one here has no antigens, but it has both antibodies. And the whole idea there that O is a universal donor, like if you put this person's blood into any of these here, it will cause trouble. But what they do is they, remember centrifuge? They separate the plasma, and that's where these antibodies are living, in the plasma. They get rid of the plasma, and they only able when you donate, you're only putting in the RBCs. And if you put this RBC into this individual, this one here, okay, it will have no effect, right? It doesn't have any of those antigens. Aha! Very interesting. Good, good, good. So there's a little recap, okay, for your viewing pleasure. This is a great little slide here, okay. Who can give blood? Who can receive it? Have a look here. There's a good little movie which I'm not going to play, but have a look at this. There will be a couple questions there on the next quiz on this information for sure, and it relates directly there to when we get into the RH. Now, just to let you know that you see these antigens, these glycoproteins there that they exist on the cell membranes. There are many more. There's like 30 of them. Okay, so there's all these different. We could go on and on about blood types. I'm not. There's your 4. We're going to hit one more, the RH. So the antigen-antibody interaction. This is the whole agglutination process, where the blood clumps in response to interactions there between antigens and antibodies that shouldn't be coming together. Example of a mismatched transfusion: a type A recipient has A antigens, right? A antigens, anti-B antibodies. Okay, and yeah, so type A recipient has A antigens on the RBC and anti-B antibodies floating in the plasma, as we stated already. Type B donor has B antigens. This would be trouble. Okay, so the result, the anti-B antibodies of recipient. So it's basically what I was saying right here, right? You put this guy's blood into here. These guys here are going to attack that. those antigens right there and bring all of this blood right down, because it sees it as a foreign body, which it is. That's why somebody there who receives, an organ transplant, all right, that's the trouble, is that they have to take immunosuppressing drugs for the rest of their life, because the body will want to attack that foreign organ, liver, whatever it is. Okay. Type O, universal blood donor. Type O has no antigens. Okay, so if we remove the plasma, so those antibodies are not there, and we just able to donate the blood, anybody can receive it. Okay. Type AB is the universal recipient. Okay, and what we mean by this one here is if you donate this, now remember, we don't give the plasma at all. We only give the RBCs. So if we donate this RBC or this RBC or this RBC to this individual, they're all going to be okay, because these guys here don't have those antibodies floating around. Okay, so type O is the universal donor. Type AB is the universal recipient. RH classification system. So people with RH factor are RH positive. People without the RH factor are RH negative. What is RH factor? So you'll see A positive, B positive, AB positive, right? So there is your, what we were talking about up here. That's these guys here, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you see a positive or negative, that indicates they're the RH. Okay, so if you're O positive, that means you have the RH factor. If you're O negative, you do not. RH negative persons initially have no anti-RH antibodies in their blood, but that can change through exposure. Okay. Through blood transfusions there, RH negative blood can be donated to an RH positive recipient. The RH positive blood cannot be donated there to an RH negative. Okay, so if this one here, this individual already is RH positive, they can receive negative blood, but not the reverse. Okay, RH incompatibility during pregnancy can cause what we call, and it's quite devastating, erythroblastosis fetalis. I'm going to show you this right now. Very, very devastating. It's a condition there where, in this particular case, mother is negative. So AB negative, O negative, whatever it is, right? But baby is positive. And I mean in utero. Okay, mom is pregnant and mother is negative, and from the father, baby is positive. So in late pregnancy, RH positive blood can and does move from baby to mother. And in this case here, you're exposing mom to this positive. So mother develops anti-RH antibodies in the plasma. You remember floating around? So mother's anti-RH antibodies move into baby, causing agglutination and hemolysis, right? So in the first pregnancy, it's not a problem. But second pregnancy, traumatic. So let's have a look here. You'll see that, I'll just zoom in. You'll see here, there, in this case, mama is negative, RH negative. No problem, everything's fine. And from the father there, baby is positive. Okay, so in the meantime, during pregnancy, and everything's fine for this pregnancy. Nothing happens, baby's fine. But during this time, mama develops an immunity. Okay, she develops there the antibodies for this positive RH. Okay, so baby comes out, baby's fine, no problem. It's the second pregnancy that is troublesome. Okay, and you'll see there that the antibodies now, baby came out, baby's fine, but now mama's body is looking for positive. Those antibodies there, you remember the agglutination? Remember the jam? Okay, that's what's going on now. Mama is fully activated her immune system and is looking for Rh positive. Next pregnancy, that's where the trouble is. Okay, and mama's body will attack baby. Okay, very, very troublesome. Okay, and just another shot there of the same thing, erythroblastosis fetalis, shows you what's going on here. Okay, that's the end of this video there. Please make sure to watch the video there from chapter 20 and chapter 21 on the immune system. Take care, guys, and we'll see you week 8 for the cardiovascular system. Take care. Bye-bye.